Jamaica Selectboard for Monday, the 11th of February, 2019, in the Jamaica Town Office. First order of business to call for any late additions to the agenda.
I'd like to make a quick report of the Transportation Committee.
Transportation Committee. Okay. Oops.
Did you want me to talk about my conversation with Drew? I think everyone knows that he's going to be I can say Drew Hazelton was going to be speaking at town meeting during the school board portion, so we decided not to invite him to the select board meeting until after town meeting on March 5th.
Yeah, that was an email, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I just letting the public know.
That's good. Any other additions? I have two. I just, since I completed the agenda, two things have landed on my desk. There's an access permit we'll add to the excess weight permits under number 7. And then I just got a letter from a package of letters from the Vermont, well, it's called PODS. I'm trying to think of how to describe it without going into the whole thing. We'll chat. It's got to do with distribution, point of distribution for medications in times of emergencies. So I'll explain it to you at the end of the session. It's not complicated, it just takes me longer to explain it than it does to just do it. Okay. That arrived today, so I figured we'd cover tonight since we have a fairly light schedule. First order of business is the second, actually. Approve the minutes of the January 28th Select Board meeting. These are all sent out electronically, as well as I think you've got them in your books. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
I have a correction.
You have a correction to our minutes?
Well, I said it.
Huh?
Something I said. Something I said at the last meeting.
Yeah.
In the minutes, right.
That's in the minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the stupid, the rules about how we manage this sort of thing, whether or not we get corrections from the floor, we get corrections from the dais.
Tell me what it is and I'll do it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It says, Joel Blooming said, people need to send a letter to V-Trans and show our interest in having Bridge 32, the bridge to the state park, fixed. What I said was it was suggested that the select board send a letter.
That's what I am asking, exactly what he said.
Thank you.
So Judy is recommending a change to that final paragraph. Did you get what it was, the change word? See, we can make it work out. We can work around these rules. Any other suggestions or changes? I'll have to get that later.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes with the noted changes.
Thank you.
Second.
I got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's all vote. Aye.
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 Any opposed? They are approved as submitted. Thank you. Thank you. Number 3, we approve the timesheets for the town offices, listers, highway, and transfer station. And number 4, we sign the select board orders. We do that at the end of the session to keep from boring audiences to death. Number 5, discuss and decide the possibility of voiding the tax sale of the coffee shop. Now, actually, we have the primary petitioner here. Would you introduce yourself to the camera? Just say who you are.
Hi, Brandon Riley.
And tell us why you're here, Brandon.
I'm here because I'd like to discuss the possibility of voiding the tax sale of the coffee shop.
And why, pray tell, would you like to void it?
Well, there's a IRS tax lien on it. I think it's for $130,000. I'm not 100% sure. Somewhere in that range, I think. And the lawyer who does the tax sales sent the paperwork to, I think he sent it to Boston, the IRS in Boston. It was supposed to be sent to Providence. And Boston returned the
Return receipt.
Yes, the receipt, saying that they received it, and but when they're after the 365 days that the owner had to redeem it, all right,
Want some help?
yeah, sure.
There's an additional 120 days that we have to
Yes.
hold on to it to allow the IRS to respond.
Yes.
Yes.
And so during that extra 120 days, the IRS told me that they were not going to redeem the property, but they didn't receive proper notice from the lawyer and they didn't receive proper notice so that they weren't going to redeem the lien on the property. And so I inherited the lien when I gained ownership of the property. I inherited the $130,000 lien. And now I owe the IRS $130,000, which is not great.
Do you mind, just for perspective, how much did you pay for the property?
$6,000.
And you got 130,000 lien on your 6,000 investment?
Yes. And so they claimed that they didn't receive proper notice because it was mailed to Boston instead of the Providence IRS. And apparently they moved from Boston to Providence within the last year or two or something like that. And Kevin, the lawyer, said that he received the return slip in the mail and claimed that means that they had received proper notice, but I talked to John Cole at the IRS and he told me that he had no control over that, and they told him that they weren't going to release the lien because they felt that they didn't receive proper notice. And so when the extra 120 days ended, the ending of that was rolling around, I was trying to contact him. I talked to Kevin, the lawyer. He said that there wasn't much that he could do, and the guy at the IRS said that it is what it is. Sorry, you're out of luck. And I tried to make a couple deals, I guess, with people who were interested in the property. They were kind of put off by the IRS thing for obvious reasons. The IRS they're looking for, at this point, for someone to make a deal with them, meaning me, for what they think is equitable in the property. They said that they'd like to get as much of what they're owed, obviously, and but if I got an independent third-party appraisal, they would go with whatever it appraised for, and they said that then we could work out a deal with that. But I would much rather, if you guys would allow it, void the sale and not owe the IRS money.
The way it works from the town's perspective is if we void the sale, we're back to square zero, which means it goes back on the tax sale next year. And then we start the whole process all over again. You're certainly welcome to bid again or whatever else goes on. We will make really, really, really sure that the IRS is on board from the beginning.
What is the tax implication around the IRS and the town if we take it back? It's in limbo, because it's in limbo and we're going to do another tax sale on it. Does that lien then stay on the property?
The IRS gets a choice after 360 days. If let's say he bids again after 360 days, the IRS has the option to take the property.
Okay.
For their lien.
Or they can
just
dispose of it and say,
yeah,
what?
dispose of it, right?
Okay.
So there's no downside to us except it's another year of it's sitting there.
And another year.
So does it,
What about the owner?
right, does it come back to us or to the owner?
He's out of the picture. We sold it. It belongs to us now,
Oh, okay.
and now we're selling it.
So we took
for
it
taxes.
back because of the
The tax, exactly. We
So
own
he
it.
owed property tax on it and we took the
took the
property
bill-
and
yeah,
paid his
he re-
property
yeah.
taxes.
So-
We seized the property.
Exactly. So it's our property now.
Okay.
And yeah, he still owes the IRS, but it doesn't sound like they're chasing him either, does it?
No. The John Cole at the IRS told me that he got out of jail. He was in jail, which is part of the reason he wasn't paying his taxes. and he wasn't allowed to leave, I assume it was Vermont, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
And he went to Florida, and they rearrested him in Florida, and I think he's back in jail,
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Usually if they have a probation that they can't
Yeah,
leave the
exactly.
state or whatever.
Yeah.
So IRS doesn't think he's good for it.
Yeah.
Right. Which may be why
They don't want to replace either.
yeah, they don't want to play with their money.
So is voiding the tax sale I mean, do we have the authority, or I guess, I mean, that's not the right
Yes.
term, as the select board, is that in our jurisdiction to void a sale?
Yeah, because according to my understanding
Yeah.
from Kevin, the lawyer, Kevin O'Toole, we have not, I mean, we've got all these things in process, but he hasn't got it yet.
Mhm.
So we can void the sale, and we're basically where we were before.
So we were sort of in lieu of the IRS acting, and because they haven't acted, we haven't actually finalized our deal, and therefore we can cancel.
That's my understanding. The only thing that has changed, now there's another $9,000 of taxes that are on the property. So that the next minimum bid will be 15,000.
Yeah.
So that's changed a little bit, but it doesn't have anything to do with the IRS.
Neither here nor there.
Exactly,
For
that
this.
just has to do with how we manage it, yeah.
Right, okay.
Oh.
Now, I'm not sure exactly how it plays that out, how much interest there is in the property. You had some nibbles around your ankles, but we don't know for sure if that's gonna continue. So it really is something we really don't know very much about it. Having said that, it's not his fault.
No, and I don't think it's the town's either. It's actually the IRS for switching the places.
They moved and then theoretically they, I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever the situation was, it went to the wrong place and we didn't know it. So probably somebody accepted it, oh yeah, signed it off and gave it to the postman, not realizing exactly where it was supposed to go. So I'm sure nobody's, no malicious intent, but hey, it's the IRS. So let's just make it neat because it does involve a financial transaction. I would entertain a motion to void the transaction on this property.
I move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
One second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion on this action? Hearing none, all in favor of voiding that transaction, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You sir are off the hook.
Thank you.
Come back next year and we'll see what's going on.
15 next year.
Learn your lesson.
The good thing is you're smarter now than you were the first time.
For sure.
We try to educate our public.
Yeah, and actually it's it was a very active place for many years, yeah.
Could I ask?
It's a shame.
One thing too, and this should go on the record, we really appreciate when people are trying to take a chance on some of this stuff. I know you don't have any really solid locked in plans about what you're gonna do with this, but at least you're trying to do something like this, and I, for one, applaud you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The entire town thanks you for this, and so that's why there was no doubt that we're gonna be a supporter of you.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. You had a comment?
Just a question. So you're saying now the value has gone up, of the bid has gone up to $15,000?
Currently, the back taxes are 15,000.
Right.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
So that would be the minimum bid.
That's my understanding.
So if you don't get the minimum bid, can you lower?
I'm gonna leave that to Kevin O'Toole and Terry. Because you're talking hypotheticals, I barely understand what's actually going on.
But legally, you can sell it for $1 if you want.
I leave that to the experts. Truthfully, I barely understand what's going on, much less what we can project into the
Just
future.
my curiosity.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but I
Yeah.
would not conjecture that that's the case without
But for
seeing the
you,
law.
it's waiting time.
Yeah.
Well, then you can think of what you're gonna do with it now.
Got $130,000, what are you gonna go buy something?
Yeah, you just made $130,000. You gotta look at these from all the different angles. And the IRS isn't chasing you. That's enough. That's worth it right there. All right, moving on. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you, guys.
We're sorry that happened.
We had, just a second, make myself a note. We have some correspondence from the Department of the Army, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, regarding, sure. This is the,
I've worked with them, that's why
Yeah.
I know about this.
yeah, you know what's going on.
Yeah, so-
Anybody else want to take a look? I've got 3 copies. We need to have all 3 of them because I got to mail them back with 200.
Sure, I'll just look
It's
at it.
just, it's the generic You guys get to play with our dirt.
These are all different.
No, they're all the same. Hang on one second.
You have one?
And here's one you can look at, yep. There's a couple of changes in these things. I won't have one in front of us, so I'll do it from memory, which is a real risky proposition. And it has to do with a change in the law. If you go to, under condition, you're right there, under condition 19, it says, basically it involves letting the feds know if we have a change in personnel that are subjective to the federal laws about non-discrimination for.
No, this has to do with.
Oh, this one's for what are they fertilizer?
Lime and fertilizers, which
Oh, yeah, that's right.
do use lime to let the.
Oh, that's 19.
Sometimes we use lime, sometimes we use, I say we,
Yeah.
not really on the recommendation, but I do help out. Sometimes we use lime, sometimes we use paint.
Okay.
And I've always said let's use paint, but some people still like the lime. And we do not keep any fertilizers at all, we don't fertilize that land. And propane tanks, we do have a propane tank, which when you're done, if you haven't mentioned, I'm gonna talk about something too. We do have a propane tank there which we can put on the shelves, I can swing down there.
It's just got to be up over the corrosive
I
water.
understand,
Yep.
I understand that.
And then number 3, is that the next one on?
Condition 20, license, this license is not subject to executive order establishing minimum wage contractors.
that's it.
And establishing.
Yeah. There's a federal executive order about what you can pay federal, or your employees if you have a contract with them. Doesn't apply to us much, but that's changed in the contract from last year.
Okay. The other thing, I talked with Dale Berkness, who heads up the Win Hall Brook campground and the dam down in Townsend. And one of the things that we have been doing and we are no longer allowed to do is to sell food or merchandise at the snack shack. Reason being that it is, although it's for a nonprofit, fundraising, it's still a for-profit endeavor. So they have said that that is no longer allowed. And that's part of getting this signed, which is the contract to re-up us using the ball field at all. So, small price to pay, but they wouldn't budge. I spoke with a number of people at the Corps of Engineers and with Dale, and they would not budge. So
Do you still, not you, but the recreation committee still make some money on, have they, I think I
in
maybe
the past, we
said
made a lot of money on it.
Yeah. But with
In the
less
last
use.
couple of years, again, my children are much older, I don't
Yeah.
really get involved anymore. So I don't know if they're even using the snack shack. I'm certain they don't use it at every game, if they're using it at all. I know I went down about a year, it would have been spring of last year, and cleaned it all out, because it was a mess with mice and old food, and there was a garbage bag still in there. It was a mess. So I cleaned that all out. There's still a little bit of candy in there, and there's some shirts, and there's some water, that non-carbonated water, because all the soda exploded. It was awful. So there's not a whole lot down there anyway, but there are some shirts and hats and things, and so, we just need to take that. Caroline Pearson was the person who was running the rec committee. I don't know if she's still doing that this year for baseball and such. I don't know. I know also Bob Johnson has also, he was big in the basketball, and he does the basketball, and he does a lot of the baseball too. So he's kind of picked up the pieces. We can always use people with young children and young families to get involved in the rec committee so that they can coach and help out, because as a lot of the people who have been running it, their children are getting older, going into middle school and high school, and they're moving on. So we've sort of had a little bit of a dip. I know some people volunteered last year for the baseball and the Pee Wee leagues, but we always can use more people. So if anyone's interested, contact Bob Johnson. He's probably the best contact at this point.
So all I need then is, I need all 3 of them back, because I've got to sign all 3 of them and mail them off to them, and then they will sign it and send it back to us.
I'll make a motion to approve the Department of Army New England District Corps of Engineers license contract, I guess. Would be like.
Sure.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. We'll get that taken care of. Okay, we have an excess weight permit from RK Miles. I've looked it over, it looks pretty good. It's got the usual restrictions. And there's a receipt for the check, and there is list of their trucks and their weight. And I believe their insurance is left over from last year, because we had that on file already. So what we would do is we would ask, we'll ask Andy to sign that next time. We'll come tomorrow and ask Andy to sign it if that is meeting with everybody's approval. Any non-approvals? Okay, we'll have him sign that
Do you
tomorrow.
have to make a motion?
I don't think we do, since this is just, well, yeah.
Then I'll make a motion.
Make a
to
motion.
approve the RK Miles overweight permit, excess weight permit.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We'll ask Andy to sign that. Get in touch with it tomorrow. And now, in addition to that, I've added, we have an access permit that just arrived. That this individual is Andrew Fleck and Carla Fleck. There's some work that's being done on, it says West Jamaica Road,
East, north, oh no, that's.
and then Pikes Falls Road, 4 feet miles. At any rate, this has gone through Keith. Keith has already checked this stuff out. They're working with him. He's already signed it. We just need to get the authorized agent, and I will, it says there's 2 other places to sign. He's got one. I don't know if I need to join it, but I'm pretty sure the road foreman needs to. We can get that to him tomorrow.
What is this for now?
This is access to get to, access to the highway from their property.
Okay. On Pikes Falls, where,
It looks like it's just, that's
well, here's West Jamaica
right
Road
there,
when it
that's
comes
Pikes
down to
Falls,
Pikes
yeah.
Falls. Okay, so right when you.
Yeah, because he's hitting both roads if I read that map.
Is that for sale? Is that the property that was for sale up there? There's some.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer.
It's hard to put it in context when it just sits.
You go around the corner there and there was a
Yeah,
driveway,
I
one of
don't
them,
know.
was, 7 units for sale, something for sale. Was that there?
But Keith's been working with him, he reviewed it, he signed it, so we just need to, I'll find out tomorrow if we need 2 signatures for the one, but we'll have Andy as the road commissioner do that as well. We had a communication, this is item number 8 on the agenda. I had a communication from the Select Board of Waterbury and the Select Board of Stratford. And I won't read the whole thing to you, but they are proposing, in summation, they're proposing a 4 cent a gallon increase on, tax increase on the gas. And this is the paragraph. If you, us, the elected officials of your municipality, believe more funding is needed to address failing highway infrastructure, and you would like to see the revenues generated by broad-based fuel taxes rather than through the property tax, please help to support this proposal. So they're basically asking us to support 4 cent a gallon increase on gasoline and diesel fuel. The money would then be allegedly earmarked for highway infrastructure, that sort of thing. I have not responded to this.
Statewide initiative?
Well, it's coming out of 2 select boards, Waterbury and Stratford. I don't know how many other select boards this was. I assume everybody, because it came to us.
Maybe they send it out to everybody.
Shotgun to everybody, and I haven't heard yet what the results have been. They do have a paragraph in here that says, at this time, we are not certain how much revenue might be generated if this tax was implemented, but it appears it may be more than 10 million annually.
I would think it'd be pretty easy to figure that out.
Well, I'm gonna hope. The best means to distribute this money to municipal governments appears to be through the formula, which distributes general state aid to highways. As such, this revenue would not fund a grant program, but it would make more unrestricted dollars available to municipal highway budgets. So the money would go into the budget, and then they get to do with it what they will. So the question is, are we as a select board inclined to support a 4 cents a gallon tax that is nebulously defined and even more nebulously
And it would
aimed?
come back to our town operating budget.
Goes
as
into the
opposed
general
to
funds.
Through the state
Yeah, that.
fund, state
Yeah.
funding of state.
And all
highways.
the money would go up north.
Well, if it
Yeah,
comes
I'm
to,
not-
I mean, I would definitely like to see more information. It's too
Yeah.
little to, I mean, not to say disagree or agree, but it's pretty vague at this point.
It does seem vague to me, I agree with that.
Also,
Yeah, very
how does that impact I mean, especially where we live, everybody has to drive.
Yep.
And people with lower incomes, it impacts them
Harder.
than people
Yeah,
with
I
higher
think all
incomes.
that kind of tax.
Progressive tax.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I'd like to know a lot more information
Sure.
about it as
I
well
can-
before I would sign off on
The
something.
legislature can take the money and do whatever they want.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Did this come through you guys at all in the transportation
No, it
committee?
didn't.
No. This says, looks to me like it was sent to the city council, select boards, and boards of trustees. If,
I can't say no, it didn't. I can say I'm not aware.
you haven't seen it. Let's, I can send this letter to you guys.
I'd like to see.
Did this come in through my
I think it
mail?
came through the listserv.
Through the listserv, okay. Can we send it to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you all a copy of this letter, you can take a look at it. But those are the salient features.
Okay.
We don't know for sure where it's gonna go, how much it's gonna be, or how it's gonna be distributed.
Right.
But we wanna
That's
raise your
the
gas
biggie.
tank by 4 cents.
Yeah, lots of biggies in there.
Across the board.
The little ones, yeah. So anyway, so for that, so let's just table it right now until you all have had a chance to look it over. We can take it up again later. If I hear anything else, I'll forward it immediately to you.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And it came,
I'll go out and research it too and see if.
I'll see if you find
what's
anything
out
on
there.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
interested.
we'll get this to you too. Okay, so then we'll just table that just for laughs. So we have on the
When is your
record.
next transportation meeting, Joel?
It was just,
Just recently, and that didn't come up then,
No.
or not that you're aware. I was gonna say maybe at the next one, bring it up if we don't know anything more.
Yeah, you want a copy too?
sure.
Can we send one to him as well? Yep. Excellent. Okay, next item of business. Okay, this pod thing. Let me explain what's going on. I got a whole packet of stuff here, which is really exciting, but I didn't copy it for everybody because I just got it today. Here's the deal. Pamela Corbett, who is on she used to be on the emergency management team, the one we had before it dissolved last year. And so I know her from that, and she contacted me, and I think other EMDs as well, emergency management directors. The idea is if there is a public health emergency, the state of Vermont has what they call pods, or point, I can't remember the first word, point of distribution, there we go. It's right here, point of distribution. So they'll establish places around the state where they would distribute whatever medications are indicated for that particular disease or dysfunction. What they propose doing is having municipalities and either other large organizations, they don't have to be government, it could be, I don't know, a large trucking firm that has lots and lots of employees, to have a closed pod. In other words, instead of having it open to the public where everybody shows up to get their meds, they'll arrange for this point of distribution to be put together to handle a specific group of people. In our case, for the municipalities, it would be municipal workers and their families. And that way, it would do a couple of things. One, it was help ensure that our people got medications as soon as possible to keep them working. The other one is cuts down the traffic in the other pods, because it just takes that number of people. If you have a large 100-employee group, you want to put a closed pod in your shop, that takes 100 families out of the other stream, which is their way of looking at that. So there's a memorandum of understanding you have to put together. The only thing, the glitch is we need to have a licensed medical professional to accept control of the meds. So that'd be an RN or a physician or someone who has a medical license. EMTs I checked are not, so it would have to be a professional license who would be willing to accept the medications, control the medications, and then kind of observe or supervise the distribution thereof. So that was sent to me, and I was asked to bring it to the select board to see if that was something we were interested in doing. There's a lot more to it. There's the usual MOUs and the Department of Health stuff. I looked it over. I didn't go over it line by line today, but I looked it over. It looks like the generic sort of thing. And I've known her for a long time, and she was suggesting several years ago that it would help the distribution of the medications during an emergency. Now, doesn't mean we have to open, even if we agree to set this up. There could be circumstances where we would say, no, we're not going to open our closed one. We're not required to open it, but it's an option that we would have should something occur.
Municipal employees, we have 10?
That and kids and relatives
Kids and
and
stuff, so it must be 100, not even 100 people. It would be 50.
No, we don't have a big, but this is applying to lots of other better municipalities.
I get
Not
that.
better,
Just
bigger.
questioning, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd see it as a smaller town, a smaller, I mean, that the benefits probably aren't all that great for a town. I mean, I can understand if Brattleboro, Burlington,
exactly.
IBM, Stratton,
Schools,
whatever, a
some
lot of
schools
different
are doing-
things.
Yeah,
But for our 10 people and their families, I just,
yeah. There's no,
I don't know
I
how
guess
much
if it's
work
not
it is.
binding-
Maybe it's not so much.
It's not
work.
binding, there's
It's
no
not
cost.
binding, we can
Yeah.
prepare for it, and if it comes up, it comes up, but I don't.
There's no,
What kind of a circumstance would that be?
how about Washington State measles as an example? Bad example, I just made it up to hold me to it. But there's an example.
Washington State, I've never heard of that one, but.
Oh, you don't know what's going on right now in the
Oh,
state of
yes, I
Washington?
do,
Yeah.
but measles is measles.
Measles is pretty much measles. But that's an example of an area-wide or a region-wide medical emergency, medical health, public health emergency, something like that. There could be other
A
kinds.
major flu outbreak happens.
That's a good example, a major
Yeah,
flu
so
outbreak.
The town would be protected, the town.
Well, with the measles epidemic, there is emergency distribution of vaccine to people who are.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's an example, which we didn't have to use, we couldn't use this. That asked us last year, we'd be guessing. Now we actually have an actual public health emergency out there because of the vaccine. So it's one of those things that doesn't cost us anything, except my time to put it together. We're not required to use it, should we choose not to for whatever reason. But it helps out the impetus is for us to help out the state of Vermont in its ability to get that stuff out there.
The preparations up, yeah.
To get it all lined up, so if something happens, then they've got some support systems. And we've identified the people and the situation. So it's gonna take some legwork on my part to put together, but I work cheap.
So some of the requirement is that we identify the health officer to administer this?
Well, we don't have to, because part of the letter says if we don't have anybody, she can help us find somebody.
Okay.
Because she has a number of volunteers who are either retired nurses or current nurses, or maybe retired dentists, or something along those lines, that may be available to help out on these kinds of things. So we'll have to look into that, but that's part of where the Vermont's trying to be proactive, and I think that's a good thing. So if it's okay with you, we need to make a motion, I'll just go ahead and pursue it, since there's no money involved.
Okay.
Everybody agree with that? Is that okay with everybody? Any thoughts against it that I hadn't thought of?
If it's not binding, it's not binding, so.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
I mean, you can always bring forward at a later date, some.
Yep.
or
Oh, if something comes up, I can
Something
bring it
came
up.
up that wasn't quite understood the same
And
way.
Sarah will be okay and her family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be right here.
I got a big family when emergencies happen. Bring all my friends.
There you go. Okay, let's see here, 1C. Oh, Joel,
Yeah.
transportation committee.
Okay, so today's meeting at the Transportation Committee, there are a couple of things. We prioritize projects for next year, for the next period rather, 2021. So since we did not get our project approved for the Jamaica Bridge, that came up for discussion. And I was able to, through a lot of discussion, get the Jamaica Bridge to still be number 2.
Oh, how did you do that?
Number 2 on what list?
The prioritization of projects to V-Trans. So the way it works is that the Transportation Committee can only suggest. There's no legislative power. And the information that they get from the Transportation Committee is given a weight of 20% in their decision-making, if they choose. It's entirely at their whim. And any project that comes up, like, for instance, we would get our, this was mentioned to me, and it's kind of cynical, but if the bridge fell in the river, it would be done this year. So any other project could come up and knock any project we have down. But I was able to keep the Transportation Committee considering Jamaica as number 2 after Bridge 54, which is, I believe it's on Route 9 between Brattleboro and Wilmington. I expressed concern that that it was pushed back, and in my opinion, and it's not an engineer's opinion, it's just a layman's opinion, and I did crawl under the bridge, their engineer's report, I guess, was not adequate, in my opinion. Where they said that it should be painted instead of replaced, and that would have gotten it off the list altogether. But these inspections are done every 2 years, and so this year another inspection would be done. And it was mentioned to me, and it would be my suggestion to you, that if we requested from the transportation, from V-Trans, we would be notified. Otherwise, we would not. If we requested to be notified when the engineer report would be done, that we'd be notified when they came to look at it.
Would that help at all, and how?
Well, it would have helped for this report. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the bridge, but I don't think you could imagine that it needs to be painted.
I
Yeah,
walk over it often and it's a
Yeah.
mess.
It's a mess, right?
yeah,
So,
it has been for a long time.
Unfortunately, there's politics, you
Right.
know, and who makes the most noise has something to do with it, which is why the last two meetings, I suggested that the Jamaica Selectboard send a letter. Today, a representative from V-Trans was there, and Chris Campany was there, and Gabby was there, and everyone said the same thing: we need to be proactive about it.
What I was thinking when I asked that question is, if we knew when the inspection was taking place,
Right.
if the board showed up,
Right. That's exactly, and I saw Paul write it down.
okay,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If we inform them now, because it will be done in the summer this year, if we inform them now that we would like to be advised of when they would be
Right.
there, then we have some leg up on that.
good, I think that's the way to go.
And I can't stress enough that from everybody's perspective, if they don't get any input from the town, then we don't think it's important. Those are the words that were used to me. If they don't get any input from us, from the select board, as well as any other concerned
Citizen.
I mean, it was recommended, and I will follow up on speaking to the State Park Commission, because they must have some concern. They can't get firewood. You know, if there's a fire, we can't send a fire engine there. Sanders weigh more than 8,000 pounds. So we have to let them know that we care, basically, because somebody tried to say, well, this is not a main route, doesn't bring tourism here. It is a main route. It's the most popular state park in the state.
Yeah.
And it brings in, and they all have this number written down, $2.2 million in revenue. And it brings the town of Jamaica, it keeps Karen busy, it keeps this new coffee shop, Workhorse, busy, and any other businesses we can conjure up. These are three
I know
or four
people
months a
come
year.
from the park to church on Sunday.
Right, there you go.
So, I mean, even for worship.
Right. So we should be very proactive and passionate about this, and I certainly have been and will continue to be, and I speak to anybody I can, and I'll send pictures or write letters, but we really have to be proactive.
When, so let's be clear, we're number 2 on the Windham County's recommendation to V-Trans.
Right.
We're still in the 20 or 23rd, somewhere in that list on the state.
We,
I thought it was 7th.
it's so nebulous.
Well, see, when I was doing research for this letter, we're trying to figure out how to write.
Yep.
I had a chance to talk to Chris Campany,
Yeah.
and trying to understand how best to frame it and focus it, since we talked last. And the ways it's explained to me, there's a list, obviously, whatever, 50 or so on, and we're like in the middle, 22, 23, that in fact, projects lower on the list than ours, this is a state list, not the county list, get bumped up, predicated
Yes.
on emergent situations or
Absolutely.
soon-to-be emergent situations. So,
We considered 3 projects that were not on this
because,
list
yeah,
that are now high up on this year's list because they just figured out that they were in
The,
bad shape.
the infrastructure around the state is, and around the country, but around the state is pretty bad. So here's part of the prioritization, and that is bridges that connect towns are a higher priority than bridges that connect parks, for example. And so regardless of how much money it brings in, there's not another town on the other side. So it's not that connected sort of infrastructure. So when we start putting this together, as important as that is to Jamaica, it would be less important than a road connecting us to, say, Wardsboro, for example, or London or something like that.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how the math goes.
But there are different priorities, and one of the priorities is there another way to go?
Well-
there are two ways to go to Woodsboro. There's only one way to go to the park.
Absolutely.
So every category has a certain weight.
Yeah.
Even though we don't connect to a town, there's no other way to get there, and it's an important tourist attraction.
Sure.
Every one of those things is a category.
Yeah, and I like the category, there's no way to escape. I mean, nothing.
No way to
And
escape.
there's residents up there too, I mean,
What's
there's
that?
houses up there as well. that
There's
don't-
homes
that
up
are-
there.
that are at risk.
Exactly.
They can totally ignore anything we say, but if we don't say anything, we don't correct.
The
So anyway-
squeaky wheel gets greased.
So anyway, so that's part of the.
So you're working on a letter?
Yeah, I was talking to Chris about it, we're trying to phrase it, figure out who to aim it at, how to say it, how to make it as relevant as the connected to the two-town rule, or whatever it is. And I'm playing the fire department thing, and we're talking about.
That's only one
access stuff.
criteria.
That's just one of them. I mean, there's several different things. And so, yeah, and it keeps dropping. I mean, it's not something it's been sitting on my desk, and those of you who have seen my desk. But it's in progress. I mean, like I say, Chris and I talked about how best to do that, and so we're working on it, and we're trying to figure out how to make it work. But we're still on the state's list. We're in the middle someplace, but people do jump over us. It's good to know the county's moved up to number 2. But number 1 is connecting towns. It's a major route.
Again, that's only one criteria.
All righty
And then
then.
there's a separate letter, independent of this, but related, is to request the data to be there for the inspection.
Yeah, that's separate. Yeah, that's a
but
new one.
Just so that's
mentioned. Yeah.
fully noted that there's two letters.
I can give you the contact.
This for the-
I have it in the car.
I'd like that too. I'd
Send
like
it to me.
contact.
Contact.
If you could get it, Paul, and send it. I'd like
Send it
Yeah.
to email. Send it to all of us.
Please, thank you, Joe.
Yeah. All righty. Oh, that's good. Let's do that. Because I'd like to know about that bridge inspection too. Time for public concerns. We only have one public here, and his concerns have been alleviated.
Yes, they have.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Second.
Do we want to discuss this? No, I guess not.
Yep.
43 minutes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody say no?
Just you, Paul.
We're adjourned at 40, looks like 44.